As the Ukraine war completes the 6th month, the world could be staring at an imminent Cold War-era arms race between nations. Let's take a look at the latest developments happening. Belarus, a staunch ally of Russia, modified its fighter jets to carry nuclear weapons as Belarusian President Lukashenko agreed to modernize Belarusian warplanes with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and has warned that the Russian ally would react immediately if the West causes any problems.
They must understand that if they opt for escalation, no helicopters or planes will save them. Moreover, Putin and I once declared in St. Petersburg that we would also refit Belarusian aircraft so they can carry nuclear weapons. Well, do you think we were just talking? Everything is ready.
Lukashenko did not go into much details. The process of transfer of the weapons from Moscow is still unclear. President Lukashenko's latest warning suggests that Russia can use these jets to transport weapons. Meanwhile, an Israeli satellite intelligence firm claims that Russia has shipped its advanced S-300 air defense system in Syria back home. Published images show that the S-300 system, stationed near the city of Masyaf in northwestern Syria, had been taken apart in recent weeks. The system had been in the area for several years. In the face of Russia's assault on neighboring Ukraine, other nations too are feeling the heat. There are concerns that the conflict may spread beyond the borders of Ukraine. Let's try to look at some recent developments. Two South Korean companies have signed a $5.76 billion contract with Poland. The Polish are buying tanks and howitzers. The contract signed in Poland is part of South Korea's biggest ever arms deal, clinched last month with Poland. Europe has been wary of Russian expansionism. Now it is strengthening its defenses, securing the Black Sea region, boosting NATO's presence in southeastern Europe. So in March this year, just a week after Russia invaded Europe, NATO decided to create 4 new battle groups, one each for Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary and Slovakia. These groups will be in addition to the ones that already exist in Poland, Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia. Each battle group has at least 1,000 soldiers. Now Romania will get 1,000 more, plus weapons and ammunition and equipment. NATO chief says that Russia's capabilities in the north as a strategic challenge for the Western military alliance. The statement was made while welcoming Canada's recently announced investments in North American defense systems. For the West, the growing strategic Arctic partnership between Moscow and Beijing is also raising alarms.
NATO's new strategic concept identifies Russia's capabilities in the High North as a strategic challenge for the whole alliance. Russia has set up a new Arctic command. It has opened hundreds of new and former Soviet-era Arctic military sites, including airfields and deep water ports. Russia is also using the region as a testbed for many of its new novel weapon systems. Beijing and Moscow have also pledged to intensify practical cooperation in the Arctic. This forms part of the deepening strategic partnership that challenge our values and our interests.
The NATO chief and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau toured a Cold War-era early warning radar site and observed Canadian Arctic military exercises. Both Russia and the West are once again at loggerheads. There is tension and apprehension and an increasing mutual distrust. And for more on this, we are now being joined by Kadira Pethiagoda from London. Kadira is an international affairs expert. Welcome to We On, Kadira, and it's good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
Now, there's so much happening. There's Belarus, which has armed its jets with nuclear weapons, and NATO shoring up defenses in Europe. What do you read from this? Could it be something bigger coming than the war in Ukraine that the world is not even ready for?
Well, I think in Europe you are seeing the shifting of the sands with a solidifying of Russia's union with Belarus. President Lukashenko faced unrest in his own country, and both he and the Russian leadership would want to ensure that that doesn't happen again. And I think in terms of the nuclear-armed jets and the trust that Russia is placing in Belarus, as indicated by that, I think that suggests that they are planning to be even closer and ensure that no other pro-Western government takes over in Belarus. And I think it's also an attempt by Russia to go more on the front foot as it sees NATO arming Eastern European countries.
Let's talk more about Belarus. Can the actions by Belarus alter the situation in Eastern Europe?
I think the situation is sort of, it'll head in the same direction that it's been heading in throughout this war, which is, a new Cold War, greater divide between the pro-Russian bloc and the rest of Europe. But I think it's just going to sort of accelerate that direction. I think it may have some effect of further increasing the fears of Eastern European countries. And you have to know that there is, different views within those countries. So I think if they see another threat from Belarus, that may trigger them to go further push towards bringing more NATO troops and more NATO involvement.
Ever since the war began in Ukraine, the Baltic nations have been concerned. Can the conflict spread beyond the borders of Ukraine, in your own view?
Well, I think that at this stage, it's not a strong likelihood, but theoretically, it could definitely happen with, you saw the tensions with Kaliningrad. If those flare up again, there could definitely be a Russian reaction. I think also with Ukraine itself, you see there's other countries who have historical claims to parts of Ukraine, like Poland and Moldova. And I think that is more in the long-term future. If we see Ukraine split apart, how that could change the dynamics in Eastern Europe. But I think at this stage, it's not likely to spread in that kind of way. I think the greater threat is of it spiraling out of control between the US and Russia and, heightening it to a direct conflict.
Finally, Mr. Kadira, how do you see the Russia-Ukraine war panning out in the near future?
Yes, I think there's sort of two main likelihoods. I mean, one could be that Russia progresses steadily and slowly in a kind of war of attrition until they're happy to make a negotiated settlement, and Ukraine agrees to that. And I think that will depend a lot on US lawmakers and how much support they decide to continue to give Ukraine. Another potential outcome is sort of a frozen conflict where Russia just holds on to the territory that it has and has a very low intensity conflict with Ukraine while it tries to repair and regenerate and boost up its military again, at the same time hoping that the West will have a change of heart, maybe even with a potential change of government in the United States if Trump wins. So I think those are the two sort of potential scenarios.